A woodworker's dreams are usually productive. Maybe a way to screw some shit together, or some type of jig to nail the perfect taper. But other times, it's this.
Wood cheeseburger.
That's right, a wooden cheeseburger. And so this young player set off to build himself a lunch.
Thanks, Snoop. You know, I actually had practical things to build and stuff to fix around the house, but sometimes you can't help but follow your stomach. For my burger components, I'm going to use species that naturally color match, as any woodworker worth their salt usually tries to avoid staining at all costs. But I think I have no choice with the lettuce, so I chose a light maple for it. All of my lumber was rough, so I'm going to spend a minute cleaning everything up. The planer was not a rinse and repeat process here because each ingredient needs to be a different thickness to get the right effect. Once I had that squared away, I resawed my mahogany bun down to cut out a few carbs. In rating my kitchen, I came away with 2 different circle size references because doesn't a burger just look better when the beef is overreaching the capacity of the bun? I'll get those circles roughed on the bandsaw, being more careful with the factory-made bun and less so with the naturally rustic shape of the patty. Remember when the rustic movement was heavy? I loved it. To me, it just meant miss on your measurements, chip out your cuts, and go ahead and leave splinters and dings. It's rustic. Now that I've got the general shape of my patty, I'll line out the lettuce, some parts going past the beef and some short, then rough that shape on the bandsaw. The yellow heart cheese will get trimmed just bigger than the patty so that I can have that melting corner effect. So I'll mark those dripping triangles and then connect them to make a squared piece of processed cheese product. This part was tough because I want to thin it down but leave just these little bits at full thickness. To tackle this operation with the router, I double stick taped it to a piece of plywood and then also stuck a few scraps of the same thickness to give my router base more surface area to reference. I went for this cut in one pass, which is certainly too deep, but if I did it in a few passes, I wouldn't have the surface for the router base to ride on, and I was correct in that I was pushing it past limits and broke a bit. Well, dust yourself off and go at it with a new one. The CNC is showing more and more merit to me now. This was taking ages, so I thought I'd punch some holes in this cheese and make my routers work easier. Now I'm a dad, and there's some low-hanging fruit here, but I respect you too much to say anything about turning this into Swiss cheese, or anything about this being shredded cheese. I just won't do it. Now that that's finished, I'll turn those squares into triangles and ended up with this look. The Paduke tomato is out of clamps, so I'll cut that into a tomato slice. And now I have all the pieces I need to drill a through hole through the center so that I can stack everything on a dowel. The bottom bun can reach its final shape with the random orbital sander, and I'll dish out the center of the underside. The top bun I'll hit with a turbo plane, which is probably the most fun woodworking tool there is. Highly recommend. The toughest piece to produce by far is the lettuce. I'm going to carve out some valleys pretty close to the bottom on one side, and when I flip it over, I'll mark the opposite space. That way, where it's thin on one side, I can leave it alone on the other, and vice versa. To give everything texture, I'll go rustic again and put a bunch of random cragglies on the beef. The lettuce gets some striations, kind of like the ribs of the leaf. And the tomato seems to have an outside ring, bicycle spoke pattern, and little flaring fans between the spokes. So I'll draw that in and knock out the negative space with the Dremel. Time to green this lettuce with alcohol ink and some isopropyl alcohol. First couple tries were a little weak, so I just went to town with the dye. And I actually like this maple knot that adds a little brown, as we've all seen that before in lettuce. I'm looking at you, Taco Bell. I need to trim the dowel to size, but I'll hit you with a handy tip first. If your calipers don't have that little extendo thing for measuring the depth of holes, use a tire pressure gauge and then measure the nubbin that's left sticking out. I'll glue that dowel in as erect as I can. Everything gets finished with some spray lacquer. Well, not this can apparently. There it is. It would be a hefty mouthful of lettuce, but seems pretty damn delicious. I think we're missing French fries, ketchup, and a milkshake.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.